Scott again, and we're back with Grazel. How are you feeling, Grazel?
I'm feeling good today. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Um, Now, I don't mean to get too personal, but I do know that you yourself are in an interracial couple, and I know that brings up some pretty interesting dynamics. So do you feel comfortable talking a little bit about that?
Yes, yes, I do.
Fantastic. So maybe you could just share either from personal experience or from experience working with interracial couples. How do communication styles differ between different cultures and different cultural backgrounds? I mean, it's a really interesting topic to get into, I think.
Yes, how much time do we have? There's so much.
Yeah.
There's so much. We'll start with the most important ones. So interracial couples bring a lot of unique ways of relating to each other, and it's
Hmm.
such a beautiful kind of intersect, right? Because you're learning so much from each other. They're learning so much from each other if they are open to learning.
Mm.
So for example, there are like for me, I'm bilingual, and some of the words that I use in my primary language, which is Tagalog, I can say one word in my language where in English I have to say it in maybe 8 words
Yeah.
to create the same meaning,
Mm.
right? So how does that impact conversations? It does impact conversations in a big way, right? Because if I'm trying to relay information from my primary language to a secondary language, it's going to take me a while to create that space for myself to deliver the true meaning
Yeah.
of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
If my partner is impatient about that, then yeah, okay, that's going to create a problem, right? So sometimes too, like my I'm um I'm Asian, right? But within the American society, they see Asians as Asian women as timid, right? Or they don't speak so much,
Hmm.
or they just stay quiet. And I'm very different, you know. I grew up with m men in my family, and I'm the only woman, or I'm the only girl and granddaughter for many, many years, for at least a decade.
Okay.
And when my cousin came in, she came in, I think 13 years later. So I was exposed to a lot of men speaking a lot. So I was taught to speak up,
Hmm.
right? So and when I'm with someone who is seeing me, whether that's in my personal relationship or work relationship or um, casual relationships, and they see me as someone who's Asian and very outspoken, they're not used to it.
Mm.
So it can create, for others, like really interesting opening for different conversations, but for others can create whoa, like a shock,
Yeah. Like you're not supposed
right?
to
So,
behave this way, type of thing. Yeah.
yes, oh, Grazel's not behaving based on what I thought society have
Mm.
told us to see this type of people, right? Culturally and racially. And that can really impact, the connection between partners. It could lean to more positive connections or negative connections or disconnections.
Yeah. And it's always really interesting how, I think it is fair to say that a lot of these cultural stereotypes do have a grain of truth in them, but at the same time, it everyone always paints everyone with the same brush. So you go, oh, this type of person will always behave this way because that's what this other person that I know behaves like, and it's ludicrous when you actually think about it for half a second. But I think we're all conditioned somehow to have that gut feeling or gut reaction at least on some level. Like how do you deal with that as the person, like not as the person who is outside of the culture per se? How do you deal with it as a person inside of the culture? Do you know what I mean? Like if I'm seeing you as a timid Asian lady, and I know that's not a good way to view you, like how can I deal with that myself?
Yeah, I think you can talk about it in couples therapy, but
Mm,
also it would be good if, let's say, you're coming from a different race, it would be good to have your own individual therapy and look at, hey, I'm so used to acting like, let's say, as a white male, right?
mm,
And now I have to think about ways on how to communicate with my wife who's Asian because I've never had before. And now I'm seeing a different light that the way I'm moving around the world is getting challenged, right? Like, so I need to be able to learn how to navigate new ways of interactions and understanding. So yeah, I would probably go and see a therapist who I would say maybe a white therapist that have done their own unpacking on their whiteness,
mm.
right? Or perhaps if there's a person of color that works with white male and to help them kind of learn how it is to be a different color or a different race, then they can work with them.
Yeah, and just the word that you just used was really interesting. The word challenge and that kind of willingness to be challenged and have your worldview challenged. It's really important to have that openness, particularly, it's 2025. Everything is so globalized now. You can't live in this little pocket where everyone looks the same as you anymore. And
Yes.
I don't know if you have an answer to this, but how can we impact change on a societal level that opens up the closed mindedness, if that makes sense? Like what do you think needs to happen to make that change?
I think first, knowing what you're afraid of,
Mm,
knowing what feels threatening to you to create that change,
mm,
right? If you feel that opening up to understanding other people from other cultures and other races, other religion per se, other sexual orientation, gender, all of that. If you feel that other people's presentation and identities, culture, and race is a threat to who you are, then I think that's the first step. Why is that a threat to me?
mm.
Why is the threat to opening up and understanding other people is a threat to me? What am I scared of? Right. And then really looking at uh, finding an individual therapist that can guide you in finding that. I think it's really hard to push someone to open when they don't know what their blocks are.
Oh, that just really speaks to me from my, my own journey. Just it's the awareness thing again, which we spoke about previously. Like, yeah, knowing what your blocks are. There's um there's a guy over in the UK called Alex Howard. He does a lot of NLP and kind of
Mm,
neuro processing type stuff. And he has the
yes,
phrase, "If you see it, you don't have to be it." And that is just
yes,
so true. You can't affect change if you can't see what's in front of you, and until you can see,
yes, you
you can't do anything about it. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. I think again, I think working on ourselves is pretty simple, but
Mm.
I think our minds are so much smarter than what we need to do, and it makes us overthink about how to do things. But being open means finding the doors that are closed, right? Like
Yeah.
if you don't know there's a door there, then you can't open that path yet.
Yeah.
And sometimes our experiences are what helps us find that path.
Mm.
And until then, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, this is the other thing. So, it's one thing to do that yourself, But then if you're in an interracial couple, and then when two people come together, it's not just the two people; it's the two people and their whole family. So how can the couple kind of navigate those familial differences and potential for conflict or disapproval or whatever? How could the couple navigate that to come out of it stronger and kind of keep the peace?
Yes, great question. It's understanding, kind of what the conflicts are about, what the conflicts are about. It's like, hey, we usually have conflicts about this. Can we sit down and check in about what we're gonna do so that we don't have a conflict? So it's a technique that we use in family systems and family structure, is that if you know that you're fighting about the same thing over and over when you go to your in-laws, or talk about it, check in, and just kind of create a good space of, hey, I want to check in. I know that's really hard for you when you go and see my family.
Mm.
And I know that we're going to have conflict about this, and I want to check in and how we can come together so we don't have a conflict about it, knowing that it happens all the time.
Yeah,
Right. So knowing what the conflicts are about, especially knowing the patterns. If there's a pattern, look at the pattern, break it.
yeah, yeah. As you say, it's really simple when you put it in those terms. It's more difficult
Yes.
than action, but yeah, I mean,
Right.
if you keep it simple, then things stay simple. And yeah, when there's particularly entrenched views, it's obviously going to take some time and it's going to take a lot of compassion on both partners' part and a lot of patience. But
Right.
I mean, have you noticed any of that yourself, either with couples you've worked with or you personally, that kind of gradual warming up in the family?
Yeah, and before I answer that, like I want to make sure that, like, for listeners, I use this word simple, but I know with respect, a lot of arguments aren't simple, right? So they may not like this term, but if it doesn't work for you, drop it, but use it when it works. So I don't want to simplify arguments when I'm saying that.
Yeah,
What I'm saying is that sometimes things are that simple. Check-ins,
yeah,
right? Um, intentional check-ins is what I would say.
hmm
So, but as a couples therapist, it's not that simple in the room either. I have to do a lot of work. So, I just want to put that out there.
yeah.
But what was your question? What's the gradual type of work
Yeah.
that they need to?
Just have you noticed that in working with couples or in your own relationship, kind of things being relatively hostile early on, but then as those conversations come up and as it's like a bonding opportunity when you have a conversation like that to say, okay, so what are you actually worried about? Why does this keep happening? Um, I'm just wondering if you've got any stories to tell or anything that you've noticed of that sort of thing happening.
Um, I think it's more about language and inclusion and exclusion
Mhm.
too, that comes up. If um there's an interracial couple and the other partner speaks different languages and the other only speaks one. And then when they come into a family setting of that partner who speaks several different languages and they go into their norm of speaking a different language,
Yeah,
the other partner who's probably an English speaker is going to feel excluded,
yeah,
right? So that's hard, especially if that partner has a history of trauma of being left out and excluded.
yeah,
Okay. So it's quite important to really make sure that how can we prioritize inclusion
mm,
in those spaces, so that no one is left behind.
yeah,
Uh, so that's kind of how I form my work, is that, oh, in those moments when your partner is being with their family, because it's something so reflexive to speak in their own language, your partner's not realizing that you're feeling left out. And how can we create safety in those moments of disconnection,
mhm,
especially with your previous trauma of being bullied or left out or excluded. That must be really hard for you.
Mm.
And how can we create that? So I usually form like if there is a shift in language,
Yeah.
is there a way to translate what's happening, right? Or what's being talked about? And also, is there a way where the other partner can come up and learn the language so
Mm.
that both of them are working on it?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's such a fascinating topic. We might have to have more conversations on this.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thanks again so much for your time. Really enjoyed speaking to you again, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Okay, thanks, Scott.